There's always been an aspect of Halo 1 multiplayer that was really, really strong, which was Halo 1 had this incredibly diverse set of maps. It really was this incredibly focused experience. It had this beautiful simplicity.
It's not often that a game just addicts me like that, where I have to keep playing it.
It was amazing to me just to see how our entire art team would just go down for entire evenings at a time, right? Just from 4 o'clock till 10 o'clock to just play Halo multiplayer.
It wasn't that easy to just go through and say, oh, well, these are the maps that shipped with the original ones and this is what we're going to do, because we wanted to do something bigger around the 10th anniversary.
We also had to think about the existing Reach player base, and we didn't want to fragment it.
We were looking at it from the player's perspective in the current day with the current abilities and saying, how would I play this level and what do I think is missing?
So we looked at maps from the Halo series entire, including Halo CE for PC and even Halo 2. And we thought, which of the maps are people's favorites that work well with the Reach engine and work well with modern kind of gameplay?
One of the things we kind of came back to was that we wanted people to take a look at the map and immediately think like, oh yeah, I loved that map.
Beaver Creek was actually the first map that started the whole conversation of, are we going to enhance the maps or are we going to just do pure remakes?
So for each of the maps, we're doing 2 modes. We're doing a classic mode, which is staying as true to the classic map layout as possible. And we're doing a kind of a default tweaked and refined mode.
Because you have things like sprint and jetpack, we took the opportunity to put in some new spaces and some new routes. There are tunnels and areas that you can keep the flow of the gameplay moving, so it's not so much of a dead end when you get to the end of the canyon.
It's still a small map. It feels bigger than it is.
They don't feel as isolated. You feel very much like you're in a world that's alive and in flux.
We want you to feel that pang of nostalgia in your chest every time you look at the map.
We chose Timberland because it was kind of an unsung classic.
Probably one of the best vehicle maps. I spent a lot of time in custom servers on Halo PC just playing Team Slayer on it.
The map itself is actually 20% smaller than what it used to be.
On the art side, we've added a lot more tree cover. There's a big canopy of trees which kind of envelop the play space more.
I'd like to think of this as Central Park, New York City. Here's this beautiful landscape, but right on the edge of a city all around them.
There's so many tight turns that there are lots of places for you to get hung up on and grenaded. Just fun stuff happens.
What other FPS do you get to put colorful flowers and green grass on your map?
Another example of a map that was gray walls all the way through.
I feel like you're just in a box with ramps.
We decided to make it a prison by putting it in a place where it couldn't be accessed.
We had to open up a lot of walls with windows. We even added glass to the floor.
It's an interesting challenge to add navigation or even add new pathways that aren't dominated by jetpack in a purely vertical map.
Added bridges and overhangs that change the flow of the map.
We don't want to overdo it because if there's too much noise in a confined space, then the map gets just frustrating to navigate.
The gameplay's still the same, but it makes you feel like you're in a much more dynamic world.
Damnation is a good example of really pretty much purple walls, and that's what represented the Covenant theme.
We kind of left it to certain affinity to think about like, well, can they give this map a context? And I think they started by looking in the room with the waterfalls.
We really wanted to give people a sense that they were in this water processing plant or this facility that had to deal with these natural elements.
The bottom area at the base of the waterfall, there used to be spaces in between them, so you had to jump from the 3 spaces that extended out. Now that's just a single walkway.
You didn't realize the first time you played it in the original, but now there's all these ledges and different opportunities to get around your opponent and flank them that weren't there before.
I think with our additions, so you don't accidentally fall to your death all the time, and also the jetpack, that map has really changed a lot, just the general flow, and it's a lot of fun to play.
This location we chose is kind of where the genesis of Firefight began.
It's a place where you stop and you defend.
Traditionally, Firefight, you've never really had the Marines fighting with you, and that's something we were able to do, and we thought, well, if we can pull this off, this is going to be a nice new take on Firefight.
Now it's you, your friends, and some buddies, or if you're playing by yourself, now you actually have some help.
Honestly, there's just nothing better than hopping online with a buddy, getting in a warthog, just killing some grunts. It's fun.
Normally with a title update, what happens is you download the title update and your world has changed forever.
So we couldn't really give them the existing Halo CE gameplay with an online component. This was the next best thing.
A lot of the fun of Halo 1 is being able to use the Magnum again, and we wanted to allow you to use that in multiplayer.
We were able to replicate the look and feel of the Halo 1 pistol with the standard pistol from Reach. 3 headshots, anywhere on the map, you're going to take an enemy down.
We've made sure that we can implement these changes on a game type level, which means we can have a version of Slayer that is exactly as it's always been, and a version of Slayer with our title update changes.
We're going to be releasing beta hoppers before the launch of Halo Anniversary, and we're going to utilize all the feedback we get from the millions of players that participate to help ultimately shape this title update.
If people take away one thing from the Halo Anniversary DLC, it's the realization that those old classic maps still feel really modern.
It's like a brand new map all over again once you get the armor abilities in there.
The soul of all of these maps are still very present, and in fact, in many ways, they're enhanced now.
Overall, the campaign and the multiplayer, it just hasn't aged in the way that we expected it to feel. And when I switch to classic mode in campaign, or when I play Beaver Creek in multiplayer, it feels new, and it still feels nostalgic, and it's a strange mixture of feelings.
I remember sitting down in a conference room and watching this purple and blue FPS game on console and scratching my head and saying, was this really going to be it? Was this going to be the thing that defined Xbox? And obviously 10 years later, it proves that that was the kind of the seminal moment for us, the beginning of Halo as an Xbox game.
Not only did Halo 1 bring the FPS to the console, it also brought story.
Cortana.
I've spent the last 12 hours cooped up.
The combination really established sort of a new genre, if you will, of FPS console story expectation.
Halo did a lot of really conventional storytelling through cinematics and cool voice acting and great music, obviously. But I think some of the storytelling that happens in Halo that's most inspiring to me is the storytelling that happens through the environment in the sandbox.
While you were hit with all this great fiction that you could really kind of delve into and try to understand more about, at the same time you could just pick it up and play.
All of that kind of came together to make a game that had not necessarily was completely different than what previous shooters had done, but got all of its individual formulas so excellently perfect. You had this incredible first-person shooter experience that I don't think anyone had ever even come close to before it.
Halo was the beginning of me playing console games with my friends, and that's still how I always think about it.
I think people have been asking for a remake of Halo 1 since Halo 2 was announced.
I like to go all the way back to the day that Xbox Live came out, and the demand for Halo 1 and the ability to play, say, co-op over Xbox Live kind of started, and it built up over the years and over the years.
It was the perfect timing since the 10-year anniversary was coming up.
It occurred to us that there's this entire generation of people who never played the original game. If you're an 18-year-old gamer today, you were 8 when Halo came out.
We did due diligence on a number of partners.
The number one requirement was that it didn't impact gameplay at all.
You have a classic, you have something that's just magical, right? If you go and tinker with it, you're going to lose that magic.
What we really needed was someone who could work with our existing physics and gameplay engine.
Saber popped up really quickly.
They're like, yeah, we can do this. We can make the game look like a current generation game, and we can do it by using the original Halo 1 engine.
The gameplay in Halo 1 is what's called deterministic. In other words, if you feed the engine the same input, the game will behave in the same way. And if you can apply this principle across a network, you can have two game worlds completely in sync.
So rather than simulate Halo's original gameplay or Halo's original physics, we're able to actually use them completely.
So the car is nice and shiny, but the engine is fairly old, but so we had to make sure that it all kind of fits together. And then we had to speed up the engine to make sure it works in today's world.
We've done some deliberate things. The library is easier to navigate now. We use lighting and textures to make it a little bit simpler.
The pillars are covered in holograms on one side, or they're more decorated on the other side. From what we've noticed, it actually seems to help people that aren't familiar with the library figure out where they're going.
Truth and Reconciliation is one of the best examples I can give. If you come to that first interaction and then you make your way towards a cliff, you can look up and see this unbelievable skybox. And so having all these updated graphics has really made the game, to me, just more immersive.
I still remember the first time I saw someone switch to graphics. I didn't know that was actually going to be a feature until I saw someone do it.
In a lot of ways, it was a very, very fine balancing act. Because again, we're running all the original Halo 1 animations, so it's the original Halo 1 skeletons for those characters needed to be rebound into the updated meshes that we had brought over from Halo Reach and from Halo 3. For example, the Elite actually has an elongated neck, so they're a little bit more squat and compact.
Cracking the case in 30 seconds.
Welcome back, sir. We'll have you battle ready stat.
Master Chief's iconic, and he has to look like a hero, and he has to look just right.
Chief's armor was a tough process. We went back and forth on that for a long time.
Originally, we were using Mark V armor that's built in the multiplayer component of Reach. We just kept coming back, and it just didn't look like Master Chief.
The first stuff we put out around E3, I think the forum reaction was instantly, Chief looks wrong, his visor's too big, the color's all wrong.
Some people thought we were doing it intentionally as a retro. If you saw the original Chief from like 1999 era, he had a really tall, very matte reflective helmet. It actually looked similar to that.
The thing about this group working on this project is that we are very, very passionate about getting this right.
We iterated on that probably 6-7 months before we finally got a final Chief's armor that I think looks awesome.
One of the #1 asks that we had for a Halo remake was we want co-op over live.
The original Halo 1 campaign experience had already been designed for cooperative play. You notice when you were getting out of the initial cryotube, there's actually 2 cryotubes for the first cinematic.
It definitely creates another challenge for us when you're playing with somebody else, but we obviously wanted to support that.
Code base was built 10, if not 15 years ago, so we had to figure out how this code base is structured, how it was designed.
We had a lot of people work really long hours to make it happen and to really code it ultimately from scratch.
It's pretty seamless, so you'll go into the campaign lobby and there you'll see your friends who are online playing the game.
You fire off an invite to a friend and they'll be able to join you,
allowing you to play what was originally a split-screen cooperative campaign experience, now across live.
Skull on.
Classically, skulls in Halo tend to affect behavior, which means the AI needs to support those behavioral changes.
How do we create something that alters gameplay? Well, one of our fundamental tenets is keeping gameplay the same.
Skulls are one of the tools we're giving the player that if they do want to change their gameplay experience a little bit, they can do it.
Benefit to this is that most of these skulls are brand new. You've never seen them before, you never played them.
Like Malfunction, where random HUD elements disappear whenever you respawn. Boom is a skull that increases the radius of explosions, making explosions more dangerous both for the Covenant and for the player. That in combination with something like Grunt Funeral means that you become very afraid of grunts.
We must continue. This way, please.
There are a few features that got into the game that turned out better than we expected, and 3D is probably the #1. It was unexpected, it was a bonus, and I don't see 3D very well, but it really worked for me. So for some reason it just pops in Halo in a way that it doesn't in other games or even movies.
Yeah, I'd say the feature that surprised me the most was Connect.
So we've got a number of voice commands throughout the course of the game. Things like grenade, reload. At a point during the game when you're playing, you can say analyze, and this mode comes up where you can almost capture items. So you move your cursor over, say, an elite or a grunt, and in the library, you can go in there and see the things you've captured, move the model around in 3D, and it gives you a bit of a breakdown and explanation of what those characters are.
For me, when I think about Halo, I think about looking around and just the scope and the scale of everything.
This is the game that started it all, and people can really dive in and play and remember what it was like to play it 10 years ago, and if you didn't play it 10 years ago, you can see what it was like 10 years ago.
It's the quintessential walk down memory lane with a much better visuals.
Ultimately, the thing you learn is it doesn't just look modern, it feels completely modern.
Completely remastered campaign, great additional features like co-op over live, skulls, terminals, 3D, Connect, and multiplayer.
Once you see it for yourself, I don't know, really, it's a pretty awesome experience.
There's a lot of stuff in there for $40. We're actually really excited about the fact that there's so much there, and it's a real smorgasbord of stuff for people who enjoy Halo.
One of the best values that you'll find this holiday season, by far.
We have much to discuss, humans. I've been away far too long. You have been away far too long.
What we wanted to do with the terminals and Anniversary is evolve them a little bit.
But we also wanted to add some fiction, because that was the only thing that we weren't really touching.
They've been done a couple times in a couple different ways so far. Animated text in Halo 3, audio file with slideshow presentations as they were done in ODST.
We wanted to make sure that we could do them in a unique way, and so we worked with the Sequence group to do more than just a motion comic. Really, it's more like an animated short.
Warning! By order of Ecumen Council.
Kind of settled on the story that talks a bit about 3 for 3 Guilty Spark.
Guilty Spark in the game is this character you don't really get to know too well. I mean, he's there and you form a bond with him, but at the same time, you don't know his story. You don't know his backstory.
What was could never be again.
That's been the fun thing. It's like, what the hell's he been doing for 100,000 years?
Other than what he says aloud, you never really understand what he's thinking. This was kind of an opportunity to explore that.
We just did the voiceover with Guilty Spark with Tim Dodabo. At one point in the session, he just said that he thought these scripts were really cool because he was able to learn some things about Guilty Spark, about him, that he had never known before in all of his time with all the games before. And that to me was a pretty good sign that we're putting together some interesting new stories, that we're adding some cool new dimensions to the universe.
It also runs parallel to the original event, so it doesn't change them in any way, but it will help you to have greater context and a greater understanding, and hopefully a greater appreciation of why you're in this place and what you're doing.
We try to make them fit very naturally within the existing spaces rather than create new out-of-the-way spaces for terminals to exist.
Even if you're not familiar with Halo, and perhaps especially if you're not familiar with Halo, this will give you some insight into the history of our universe and some of the characters that are involved in it.
All preparations are complete for my installation.
There's just so much that's been established. It's actually worked out so well for us to build upon that and work with that.
We felt it would be an interesting opportunity to help tie the story in. So with the terminals, you'll get a couple sneak peeks of some things that we're thinking for Halo 4.
And through it, the familiar shape awaits. Halo. Home.
I think back to San Diego Comic-Con when we were doing a panel and we were just setting up and, you know, that monk chanting started. The audience just went nuts. Sitting at the panel thinking like, yeah, wow, we've got some really iconic music on our hands. That music was very, very key to a lot of the emotion of the game and a lot of people's memories of the game.
You see a still from it and you hear the music, or you hear the music and you see yourself playing the game back in that day. I didn't want to lose sight of that. I wanted the music to speak for itself and just give it the red carpet love letter and bring all the resources that we could bear to bringing it back. I really wanted to take what I had learned on Legends and to work with a partner that I had just had great success with in Puremind and Paul Lipson. I started formulating my plan of how to approach it. Halo is really near and dear to my heart. Shipping the original audio as it was when they were doing so much work on remastering the visuals wasn't going to cut it.
And this was the challenge. We wanted to maintain our reverence and DNA of the original score, but we did need to extend.
What we wanted to do was enhance what was there and bring to life with modern production techniques and vastly increased resources over the original.
There's a lot of choices out there, but I was a big proponent of Skywalker. They have tailored everything to the pursuit of capturing an orchestra.
Skywalker is a great place to record, first of all, because we have a fantastic staff, but also the room is a wonderful sounding room that can be tuned to accommodate any kind of music.
To me, it just represents the absolute state of the art, and it's a perfect partnership for Halo Anniversary.
If you like the way music was spotted in the original at a particular point, it's going to be the exact same piece. It's just going to be done with a 75-piece orchestra at Skywalker Sound.
The guys did a great job on reorchestrating the original work.
There was no pre-existing MIDI audio files to work with, and all we had was literally the original in-game file. We had to meticulously listen and transcribe every note.
You're starting from something that's already finished, and something that's iconic, something that's beloved.
There's a lot of things that are exact, and there's a lot of things that are adaptations and in the spirit of the original.
Synthesis was all done on gear that was available in 2000, 2001. We actually have a couple of guys on the team who are encyclopedic in their knowledge of old gear. They've been able to go back in, listen to what's there, find the exact synth, the exact patch, tune it to exactly how it sounds, and then re-perform it for this.
Power of an orchestra and the way scores are being composed now has really raised the level of expectation because it's much more of a real, tangible, visceral experience than it was in the past.
At the heart of the music and at the heart of the story is Marty O'Donnell's original creation, and it's very respectful of that, but yet it still sounds new.
You do have the option in the menu to just play the game to that original soundtrack. So if you do want to hear that music exactly the same as it was 10 years ago, you can still do that.
We've got fans making this music, which means that when we are adapting this music, we're doing it from the standpoint of we play it, and we've been playing it for years, and we're just going to apply our sensibility as both a fan and as artists.